Hello, boys and girls. This is Papa. I bet you didn't know it was Papa. And I got this cool book all about space stuff. And I'm going to read it. And then we'll see what you think about that. And on the cover it says, wow, I didn't know that you can jump higher on the moon. Did you know that? That'd be pretty high. Okay, it says rockets can travel at 25,000 miles per hour. There's no air in space. You can jump higher on the moon. Oh, that's I'm reading you the index. I shouldn't be reading you the index. Let's just go over here to this one. It says, introduction. Did you know that one day people will go to Mars? That's way up there. It's one of those planets. And that trips to outer space will be possible. Even for regular people like us, we can probably pay and get on like a jetliner thing and rocket up there. And cool. I think that'd be pretty cool. And it'll be possible for everybody. That aliens might really exist? I don't think so. Discover for yourself amazing facts about space exploration from the earliest attempts to today's amazing International Space Station. True or false, you watch for this symbol as a question. When you watch for this symbol, it means there's a fun project you could try. Okay. I didn't know that rockets can travel 25,000 miles per hour. That's just a little bit faster than your bicycle and your roller skates. This is the speed needed to escape Earth's gravity and enter space. A steady 18,000 miles per hour keeps the rocket in orbit or in outer space. Modern rockets are used for launching space probes and satellites. Here's a picture of a rocket in its different parts. Werner von Braun was the German inventor of the deadly V-2 rocket. Later, he became the chief designer for space rockets in the United States. There were many early ideas for space travel. One of them was to try to fire a craft into space from a cannon. Well, a regular rocket is powered by hot gases escaping from a combustion chamber. Now, you Rice boys have got your own little rockets, and you know about that. Attach a balloon to a straw that has a string through it and fix the string to 2 points and blow the balloon up and let it go. Escaping air will push it up like a rocket. So that's exactly how a rocket would work, and you can do that at home without any fire or hot things that way. I didn't know that there is no air in space. As you leave the Earth, the air gets thinner and thinner. By the time you reach space 100 miles up, there's no air at all, and it's called a big vacuum. True or false? Flying fragments could kill an unprotected astronaut if unbearable heat, cold, or radiation didn't strike first. The answer is true. It's dangerous out there. In 1996, a British-built satellite was smashed by a briefcase-sized piece of an Ariane rocket. Can you imagine just a little tiny piece in space hit that and smashed it? We know that nothing burns without oxygen. Watch a candle go out when it has used up all the oxygen in a jar. Once the flame goes out, the gas is cooled and the water rises. Because space has no air, spacecraft can carry liquid oxygen to burn fuel. But you need help when you're going to do this experiment. The cosmonaut Alexei Leonov made the first ever spacewalk way back in March 1965. He was from Russia, or then they called it the Soviet Union. He floated in space for 20 minutes before struggling back into the tiny spacecraft Voskhod 2. There he was floating around. Now here's another one. I didn't know that you can jump higher on the moon. Astronauts on the moon can jump and run and leap much farther than on Earth. That is because the moon's gravity is weaker. Your weight on the moon is 1/6 of your Earth weight. Can you figure out how much you would weigh if you were standing on the moon? I'll bet you your mom and dad can show you with doing some arithmetic by dividing your weight by 6. Jules Verne, he wrote a book called From the Earth to the Moon in 1865. That's 150 years ago. He didn't realize that there was no air on the moon. True or or false? The American flag, which was planted on the moon by Neil Armstrong right here in 1969, is fluttering because there's a breeze blowing across the surface of the moon. The answer? False. There is no air or wind on the moon. The flag is held up by a tiny metal rod that comes right across here and is hooked to the flagpole because they wanted you to be able to see the stars and stripes. I remember when that happened. I was a teenager then, a long time ago. I didn't know that there are people living in space. Since 1971, people have been living there for short periods on board space stations. These orbit the Earth up at 240 miles above the Earth. The International Space Station has been occupied since 2000. That's 15 years now. And in that time, it has been visited by over 200 people. And all the time, several times a year, one country or another sends a rocket with a few people up there, and then they bring some others back. So they kind of take turns. They're not there. 200 are not there all at the same time. True or false? The International Space Station is as big as a football field and weighs close to 1 million pounds. The answer is true. The space station, including its large solar arrays, spans the area of a football field with the end zones and weighs 924,739 pounds. That is, of course, before they had their donuts for breakfast. It has more room than a 6-bedroom house and has 2 bathrooms, a gym, and a 360-degree bay window. That means they got a window that goes all the way around so they can look out any window. Astronauts need strict routines for working and resting to make life in space seem more normal. They work 12 hours a day and they exercise 2.5 hours a day to keep their muscles strong and be able to do their jobs well. I should probably exercise 2.5 hours today, but I don't think it's going to happen. I didn't know that astronauts are water cooled. Their underwear is threaded with liquid-filled tubes to keep their bodies at a steady temperature. Well, wouldn't that be great when you're playing soccer on a hot day? Otherwise, they might boil or freeze outside the spacecraft. An astronaut can spend several hours outside the spacecraft in an MMU, which they're calling a manned maneuvering unit. The spacesuit and the MMU form a life support system with oxygen and cooling fluids and a snack to eat and even a diaper, because where are they going to go to the bathroom up there? It is multi-layered and it has liquid-cooled underwear with it. Cool, I guess. We call spacemen astronauts, which means sailors of the stars. Russian spacemen are called cosmonauts, which means sailors of the universe. The first person to go into space was a Russian test pilot named Yuri Gagarin. He did that in April 1961. Your papa was 7 years old when that happened. His tiny spacecraft orbited the Earth once before re-entering the atmosphere. So it went all the way around the Earth once and then came back down and landed. I didn't know that heat-proof tiles prevent a spacecraft from burning up when it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. This way it can be used again. So it's covered with these tiles. It would be kind of like giant pot holders. So like when you get a pan out of your stove or your oven and it's very hot to touch, that's what these things do. They're like giant pot holders on the outside, except they're hard and made out of ceramic. After re-entry, landing a spacecraft safely is the hardest part of the journey. The first space travelers had to abandon their craft 4 miles above the Earth and parachute to safety. These 3 astronauts escaped from an explosion on board Apollo 13, but tragically 7 astronauts were killed in 1986 when the Challenger blew up, and 7 more died in 2003 when the shuttle disintegrated on re-entry. True or false? NASA's space shuttle is still in use today. Answer: false. The space shuttle was retired from service upon the conclusion of Atlantis' final flight in 2011. That's 4 years ago now that the last time our space shuttle went up. I didn't know that there's a telescope in space. A space Space Telescope, which can view space without Earth's atmosphere getting in the way. The Hubble Space Telescope was put into orbit 384 miles above the Earth in 1990. The Italian named Galileo was one of the first and earliest scientists to build the telescope. He first discovered that there were 4 moons going around Jupiter. True or false? The Hubble Space Telescope can see a coin 400 miles away. The answer is true. It can also see galaxies in space that are 14 billion light years away, as they were 14 billion years ago. The HST, or the Space Telescope, is a tube that's 562 inches long. Let's see, I'll do some quick math here. That's a lot. About 40 feet maybe. And 196 inches across, which that would be about 20 feet. Mirrors reflect the light from distant galaxies into electronic instruments that then send those signals back to Earth. The signals are then converted into pictures of the galaxies. And then the scientists can study all that stuff. Page 20. I didn't know that satellites are powered by the sun. As they travel around the Earth, satellites need electricity to power them. And there's no place for them to plug in a cord out there, so they are supplied by solar cells or solar panels. These are large arrays of solar panels which convert the energy from the sun into electricity to replenish the satellite's batteries. You know, one of these days in you boys' life, you will see lots and lots of solar panels. They're already starting to show up on Earth. People will begin to put them on businesses and on their houses, because it's an economical way and a renewable way to make electricity. True or false? Satellites eventually fall back to Earth. And the answer? False. Only those satellites in very low orbits fall back to the Earth and burn up. Those further out will remain in orbit for millions of years, and I won't be here. I'll be looking at them from heaven. Satellites orbit the Earth. Earth's gravity stops them from flying off into space. If you attach a ball to a piece of string and spin it round and round, the pull of string is like the pull of gravity. The ball's speed keeps it in orbit, pulling the string as you spin and see what happens. Just as you have to move faster and faster to keep it in motion, planets closer to the sun have to move faster and faster to avoid being pulled by the sun's gravity. It's okay if you don't understand all this stuff yet, boys, because I don't either. I didn't know that astronauts fix broken satellites in space. Yep, sometimes they use duct tape too. Space engineers are specially trained to recover faulty satellites and repair them. Members of the repair team have to be able to work in zero gravity while wearing spacesuits. Some of the astronauts' training take place in a water tank, so they can get used to floating about, because that's kind of like it is up there in the air, in outer space. True or false, spacecrafts have arms and hands? And the answer is true. The jointed robot arm on a spacecraft has a hand on the end that can grip objects in space. It's operated from inside the craft. An astronaut with an MMU becomes a human satellite. The word satellite describes one thing that is in orbit around another. For example, the moon is a satellite of the Earth, because the moon goes around the Earth once every day. Page 24. I didn't know that a Viking has landed on Mars. 2 Viking probes went to Mars in 1976. The landers were like mini laboratories that took photos and analyzed samples. They sent information to Earth for 6 years. Mars is currently host to 5 functioning spacecraft, 3 in orbit and 2 on its surface. True or false, there are signs of life on Mars? And the answer is true. Tiny volcanic organisms have been found in a meteorite that came from Mars. Recent evidence indicates that water once flowed in streams on Mars. In 2013, NASA's Curiosity rover discovered that Mars' soil contains between 1.5% and 3% water by mass, whatever that means. Your dad can explain it to you. Did you know that in 2012, a Mars laboratory arrived at Mars? Its job is to collect soil and rock samples of the red rocky surface to help us understand more about this amazing planet.